They say pleasure is the prize, but what if it's the mask? What if the chocolate, the scroll, the lust, the laugh are just shadows in disguise, hiding something ancient, raw, and quietly painful? Let me ask you this: when was the last time you felt full, without needing anything else? Not just distracted, not just entertained, but profoundly still, completely untouched by craving. We live in an age drowning in pleasure, and yet, we are starving. Carl Jung once warned that the things we chase to soothe us are often the very things that delay our healing. Today, you're going to see pleasure through a lens you've never looked through before. Picture this: you wake up and reach for your phone. No real reason, no emergency, just habit stronger than hunger. A reel makes you smile for 3 seconds. Then another, and another. The day disappears but the ache stays. You put the phone down, maybe grab something sweet, or salty, or both, and then, guilt creeps in. You weren't hungry, you were looking for something. But it wasn't food, it wasn't dopamine either, it was silence, stillness, a break from the storm you've never learned to name. Carl Jung believed, we all carry a shadow, a hidden self we bury under distraction. And pleasure, when misused, becomes the shovel. When you eat without hunger, scroll without curiosity, or crave without love, you're not choosing joy, you're choosing numbness. Here's the uncomfortable truth: most pleasure, in pleasure, it's relief from self-awareness. But it comes with a cost, because every false hit of joy creates a deeper hunger for the real thing. And when you can't find it, you think you're broken. You're not. You've just been trained to mistake escape for happiness. Let's go back. You're 6. You cry. No one listens. You learn. Pain gets ignored, but smiles get approval. Distraction gets reward. That's how it begins. That's how your pain goes quiet, and your pleasures get louder. Louder than your fear. Louder than your loneliness. Louder than the small child inside you who only wanted to be held. But here's what nobody tells you: pleasure has memory. Every time you use it to silence pain, your body starts to fear stillness. That's why you need music in the shower. Why silence feels like punishment. Jung knew this. He saw that pleasure isn't the enemy, but the avoidance it allows is. So, before we go further, take a breath. If this hits something in you, subscribe. Not just to support this message, but because you're not alone in this. Drop a comment. Share the line that hit you hardest. That's not weakness, it's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of real strength. Now imagine someone walking through a desert, chasing mirages. Each one disappears the moment they reach it. But they keep going, thinking the next one will be real. That's what pleasure becomes when it comes without purpose. Here's the irony. Real pleasure, the kind that feeds your soul, is often quiet. It doesn't shout, it doesn't numb, it expands you. It's in the hard-earned moment, the deep conversation, the fear you finally faced, the craving you no longer need. But that kind of pleasure, it's not easy, and that's why we avoid it. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul and pleasure. It might be the most beautiful absurdity we've ever created. Let's rewind. You fall, you cry, and someone says, "Here, have a cookie." Don't cry. Or they put on a cartoon. That moment stays. Your brain learns. Pain equals bad, feeling equals weakness, pleasure equals solution. So, you grow up fluent in distraction. You become someone who says "I'm fine" while smiling through a screen. Every time you replace emotion with stimulation, you drift further from your true self. Jung said, when the inner world is ignored, the outer world becomes louder. And what's louder than pleasure? The scroll, the ping, the binge. They scream so you don't have to listen. But what if you did? What if you heard the ache underneath the need for meaning, the wound of being unseen? Pleasure is not evil. It's sacred when chosen with intention. But when it replaces presence, it turns into poison. Ever felt guilty after a moment of pleasure? Another episode, a text you shouldn't have sent, food you weren't hungry for. That guilt isn't sin, it's your soul whispering. You weren't fed. You were distracted. This is where people misread Jung. They think shadow work is about darkness. It's not. It's about honesty. Noticing when you betray yourself for relief and choosing truth instead. Let me give you a real story. Someone kept chasing love. One relationship after another. Intense, addictive, always crashing. They said, "I just love love," but that wasn't true. They loved distraction, because when they were alone, the silence screamed. They had never learned to sit with their wounds, so pleasure became a plaster. Until it cracked. This story, it's everywhere. People mistaking longing for love, mistaking numbing for healing. The danger in the pleasure it's when we stop questioning why we need it. Let's break the myth. Pleasure is not healing. It's not peace. It's not power. It's a tool. And tools, when misused, can wound. Now flip this around. Remember the last time you said no to the craving. Skip the scroll, delayed the click, and later you felt proud. Because discipline isn't control, it's self-trust, and trust is the real high. When you trust yourself, pleasure doesn't own you. You choose it, fully, freely, that's when it becomes beautiful again. Not a chain, not a drug, a celebration. Now imagine this. You walk into a quiet room, no phone, no sound, just you. And instead of panic, you feel peace. Not because you have everything but because you are everything. That's what Jung called individuation, becoming whole. Not through denial or hustle but by integrating your shadows. Feeling pleasure without hiding pain, enjoying silence without fearing it. Sitting with yourself and liking who you are. That's the path, but you won't find it by chasing highs. You'll find it by turning down the noise and listening to what the noise has been hiding. What does that look like? It's pausing before you grab the phone. Asking, what am I avoiding? Letting loneliness be felt without sugar, sex, or scrolling. Choosing slower pleasure. The kind that takes effort, the kind that waits. Because here's the secret, real pleasure is earned. The best laughs come from trust, the best meals follow hard work, the best connection comes from being seen, not just swiped. If this is shaking something in you good, that's what awakening feels like. Not loud, not dramatic, just decisive. The question is simple, will I keep numbing, or will I finally meet myself? Jung said our real suffering doesn't come from trauma itself, but from our refusal to face what trauma left behind. And unconscious pleasure, it makes sure we never face it. But now you see it. So, what will you do? Here comes the hard truth, the final layer. You've betrayed yourself, not once but daily, quietly. Every time you said just 5 more minutes. Every time you avoided silence because it spoke too loudly. Every time you said, this makes me feel good, when it really helped you forget. But listen, this isn't shame. This is awakening. You're not weak. You were surviving. Now, you're ready to live. Because once you see that most pleasure was just sedation, everything changes. The party feels empty. The scroll doesn't scratch the itch. The hookup doesn't heal. The sugar doesn't soothe. Because the real pain wasn't boredom. It was the absence of you. Let me paint this clearly. Your life is a house. Inside it lives your wounded child, your unhealed truths. But instead of going in, you build a party on the lawn. Music, lights, candy, comfort, all outside while the child inside waits. That's what unchecked pleasure does. Real healing is walking through the silence, opening the door, sitting down, and saying, I'm here now. Jung didn't want us addicted to stillness. He wanted us unafraid of it. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's everything you've been avoiding. Now here's the climax, the final myth to break. You've been told pleasure is the goal. That freedom means doing what you want. But real freedom is not needing to. Real pleasure isn't the chocolate, not the text, not the ego stroke. It's realizing you no longer need distraction to feel whole. You sit in silence and smile. Not because it's empty, but because it's full. Full of presence, full of truth, full of power. You become someone who doesn't chase the high because you carry the peace. And people will notice, Why are you quieter? Why aren't you online? Why don't you text back? And you'll smile. Because you're not avoiding anymore, you are present, and presence is power, uncheckable, unmanipulated, undistracted. Pleasure no longer lures you. Marketing loses its spell, addictions lose their bite. Because peace has returned. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and who you are is not a dopamine addict, not a collection of cravings. You are a creator of meaning, and meaning, it rarely feels good, but it feeds you like pleasure never could." So next time the craving hits pause, don't fight it, don't shame it. Just ask, what do I truly need right now? That one question can break the loop, hand you the pen, and remind you, you are not your hunger, you are the one who chooses how to feed it. And from here on, you will never look at pleasure the same way again, not because it's evil, but because now you finally see it clearly.